What's going on, Royals? Meet your Strawman. This is the 25th time I've sat in front of you speaking the gnosis. Prepare thyselves. Get the organic popcorn ready. Let's do this. Who's introducing tonight? It's the Strawman, of course. Wishing he had a brain. Don't worry, I'm here to give you one. You already know all of this stuff. You just got to remember it. That's right. He'd unravel every riddle. Alright, so yesterday we were talking about Richard Dixon and his shithouse speech. You know who Richard Dixon or Nixon is, don't you? He's the one in Futurama. He's always with that headless body, the Agnew. He's fucking stupid. Anyway, let's continue. This was obviously not a temporary suspension as he claimed, but rather a permanent default. And for the rest of the world who had entrusted the United States with their gold, it was outright fucking theft. In 1973, President Dixon asked King Faisal of Saudi Arabia to accept only US dollars in payment for oil, and to invest any excess profits in US Treasury bonds, notes and bills. In return, Dixon offered military protection for Saudi oil fields. In other words, if you don't agree with what I'm saying, we're going to conjure an invisible enemy. It's going to come and fuck over your countries, and you're going to be like, damn, I should have taken that deal so I had this protection. It's all a big circle jerk. Now, the same offer was extended to each of the key oil-producing countries, and consequently, by 1975, every single member of OPEC got shafted because they agreed to only sell their oil in US dollars. Now, the act of moving the dollar off gold and tying it to foreign oil instantly forced every oil-importing country in the world to maintain a constant supply of Federal Reserve paper. Now, I understand why everyone stocked up on TP during the scamdemic. And in order to get that paper, they would have to send real physical goods to America. This was the birth of the petrodollar. Paper went out, everything America needed came in, and the United States got very fucking rich as a result. It was the largest financial con in recorded history, but I think it's been knocked off the top spot by the COVID scamdemic. Now, the arms race of the Cold War, freezing cold, was a game of poker. You know, when all the dogs are sitting around the table? That's right. Military expenditures were the chips, and the US had an endless supply of chips, Samboy and Smiths. With a petrodollar under its belt, it was able to raise the stakes higher and higher, to the point where they were stabbing a very tall vampire in the chest, outspending every other country on the planet until eventually US military expenditure surpassed that of all of the other nations in the world combined. The Soviet Union never had a fucking chance. Now, the collapse of the communist bloc in 1991 removed the last counterbalance to American military might. The United States was now an undisputed superpower with no rival. Ha ha! We are on top, humans! Many hoped that this would mark the start of a new era of stability and peace. But unfortunately, there were those in high places who had other ideas. Yes, peace doesn't make money, humans. Within the same year, the US invaded Iraq in the First Gulf War, and after crushing the Iraqi military and destroying their infrastructure, including hospitals and water purification plants, crippling sanctions were then imposed which prevented Iraq's infrastructure from even being rebuilt. That's right, just leaving them a barren wasteland. These sanctions, which were initiated by Bush Sr. and sustained throughout the entire Clinton administration, lasted for over a decade and were estimated to have killed more than 500,000 children. That is fucked up. It's not funny at all. The Clinton administration was fully aware of these figures. A TV interviewer speaking to Madeleine Albright, Secretary of State for Clinton, asked, "We have heard that 500,000 children have died. I mean, that's more children that died than in Hiroshima, and is the price worth it?" To which Madeleine Albright replied, "I think that this is a very hard choice. We think that the price is worth it." Miss Albright was then assassinated. No, unfortunately she wasn't. What exactly was worth killing 500,000 children for? What the fuck? In November of 2000, Iraq began selling its oil exclusively in euros. This was a direct attack on the dollar and on US financial dominance. The ego of the US was shattered. Doesn't say that, but you know it was. How dare you, humans? And it wasn't going to be tolerated. In response, the US government, with the assistance of the mainstream media, began to build up a mass propaganda campaign claiming that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction and was planning to use them. So everybody in the collective was like, no, save us. We don't want to be hit with nuclear weapons. Go in there and get the bad guys. But they're actually supporting the bad guys. In 2003, the US invaded, and once they had control of the country, oil sales were immediately switched back to dollars. You didn't see that one coming, did ya? This is particularly noticeable as switching back to the dollar meant a 15 to 20% loss in revenue due to the euro's higher value. It doesn't make any sense at all unless you take the petrodollar into account. Now, on the 2nd of March 2007, US General Wesley Clark said, so I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, are we still going to war with Iraq? He said, oh, it's worse than that. He said as he reached over on his desk and picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs today, up, left, down, right, meaning from the Secretary of Defense's office. This is a memo which describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting off with Iraq and Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran. Let's take a look at the events of the past decade and see if you see a pattern. In Libya, Gaddafi was in a process of organizing a bloc of African countries to create a gold-based currency called the dinar, which they intended to use to replace the dollar in that region. US and NATO forces helped to destabilize and topple the government in 2011, and after taking control of the region, US armed rebels executed Gaddafi in cold blood and immediately set up the Libyan central bank. That's not sus at all. Iran has been actively campaigning to pull oil sales off the dollar for some time now, and it has recently secured agreements to trade its oil in exchange for gold. In response, the US government, with mainstream media assistance, has been attempting to build international support for military strikes on the pretext of preventing Iran from building a nuclear weapon. Bullshit. In the meantime, they established sanctions which they admit are aimed at causing a collapse of the Iranian economy. We're going to stop it there. As you can see, the US are fucked up, and they've been doing some fucked up shit. And we support the US, so we got to wake the fuck up and realize that all of these governments, military type services are fucked, and we don't need them. Anyway, much love. There it is. Yes, meet your Strawman, getting them pumps on. We'll return tomorrow with part 26, Freedom.